Hi. We are now continuing on our journey on open source versus source models. Now we are coming to the very important question of the economics driving the development of these two streams of models, because ultimately both streams require a substantial amount of capital to be invested, and so economic factors are definitely there. The debate over whether generative AI models should be developed in open source or closed source has many critical factors impacting it, including safety, control, innovation, and ethical considerations. This is really important because it determines the way the future develops. And this is an important debate which you would have been hearing of quite a bit. So in this video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about focusing primarily on the economic side of this debate. And in the next subsequent videos, I'll talk about other aspects such as the safety aspects and the ethical aspects, etc. Hi, this is Shaylee, and this is my YouTube channel, AI Economics. I take complex concepts of artificial intelligence and try and decode them for their business impact and business implications. If you're interested in this kind of content, please do consider subscribing and also hit the like button for this video and the bell icon to be notified about any new videos that I might be uploading. So, why is this debate important? It's actually a debate between people, key tech leaders who think that the development of AI is proceeding at a breakneck pace and is going to actually lead to a very dystopian future. If you have seen TV serials like Battlestar Galactica, where you have robots which have and androids which have literally taken over humanity and destroyed them, or if you read Isaac Asimov, this would be something that would resonate with you. But is that really the case? And it's a kind of a debate between dystopia versus monopoly. So, who are the dystopian guys? The dystopian future guys, Elon Musk is definitely being vocal for a very long time about the potential existential risks posed by artificial intelligence. He has really emphasized that there is a need to have very strong guardrails in the development of artificial intelligence. Elon Musk, as you know, was one of the founding members of OpenAI and then at some point exited it. And subsequently to that, he has been at loggerheads with them. The second dystopian guy, and possibly a little more concerning because Elon does tend to shoot off a lot, is Jeffrey Hinton. Now, Jeffrey Hinton is actually the father of deep learning as we know it. So essentially, he's the person who kind of literally invented the key techniques which have enabled this kind of generative AI models to come into being. Now, Jeffrey Hinton is a pure artificial intelligence researcher and scientist. I mean, so he has also been talking extensively in various forums about the risks posed by generative AI and has been coming out very strongly in the favor of a great deal of regulation, and also just he has expressed a lot of concern about the impact of AI on jobs and on the future. So these are the guys who are absolutely the dystopian guys. Then there's a second group of two, which is basically, I would call them the guardrails and monopoly gang. So this is led by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, first and foremost. He's been engaging a lot after launching ChatGPT 4, changing the way the world thinks about artificial intelligence. He has really been engaging with governments about the need for regulation, the need for guardrails, which can actually ensure that the AI's impact and development is along lines of safety and equity. The second one, of course, is Sundar Pichai. He is a little more optimistic about the future of AI, but nevertheless also has engaged a lot with governments, the US government in particular, about the need for regulation and the need for regulated development of artificial intelligence. On the positive side of the AI debate is Jan LeCun. He is a leading artificial intelligence researcher with Meta. He leads artificial intelligence at Meta and has been responsible for the overseeing and possibly developing some very important models which have been open sourced by Meta. Yan has a much more optimistic view of the current artificial intelligence, and he does not think that the risks are as high as they're being made out to be. As he puts it very famously, he'd be very happy to see generative AI models get the intelligence and the common sense of a cat before we come to humans and actually exceeding humans. So, but he does strongly believe that AI can bring about a lot of good and is very skeptical about achieving super intelligence in the near term. Demi Hassabis, he's the CEO of DeepMind. Again, this is a company which is part of Google and has been very critically focused on advancing some of the major models and is behind some of the major development of some of the major models, the Gemini series that Google has recently been releasing. He again has a much more positive view of the impact of AI and does not really fall into the dystopian gang. Now let's understand what are the pros of open source models from the economic perspective. Which I think is the important perspective because it really determines the costs and benefits associated with a particular strategy, and if something is economically viable, will it continue. Okay, so in terms of the pros, there are some very strong pros to open source models. The first is this model tends to facilitate both innovation and collaboration. So it leads to much more rapid spread of the models, and it leads to very rapid innovation because developers across the world have access to these models, and they're doing their own sort of experiments and developing them. So this leads to a lot of innovation. The second thing is that one end result of an open source model is that it reduces development costs for companies. Companies can use and contribute to open source projects and do not need to develop their own proprietary models from scratch, and this therefore reduces costs for them. It also leads to market expansion. How does it do that? By the very existence of open source models means that many small startups and companies can think about leveraging or using generative AI models, whereas they would not have been able to afford it had they had to take a license from a closed source company such as OpenAI. Fourthly, there is more competition because there are many, many more different variants of the model, and this ultimately can lead to lower prices and lower costs for the end consumer. So yes, on the pro side, innovation and competition and lower prices are definitely the pros that come with open source. What are the cons of open source? Now, the first and major con really plays to the guardrails, the tech leaders who had reservations about the misuse of models, and that is really concerned with the misuse of models for creation of deep fakes, for creation of autonomous weapons, or for surveillance purposes. So there is definitely a need for guardrails in the development of open source. But however, by its very nature, since it spreads so far and wide across the internet and across different countries, it may be difficult to implement all the guardrails uniformly. The second thing is there is a challenge for future investments in this model, and this is more of an economic perspective. They do not necessarily have a very clear monetization model, and as a result, it may result in a funds crunch. This also plays out into the free rider problems. A lot of companies may choose to use open source models, but without necessarily contributing to the development of these models. Ultimately, it can lead to a very fragmented sort of ecosystem in which there are multiple models. So there may be a lot of challenges associated with integrating them, and uh, 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 and where multiple and a very confusing kind of environment may exist. So in total, these are the cons. And I think the major con that stands out really is the safety and misuse one. And that is the one that really is plays foremost in the minds of the regulators, and is an important one to be addressed. Now let's look at the pros and cons of the closed source models. The major pros are, of course, that there is a more systemized and controlled environment for development of these models. The companies are able to ensure a higher standard of quality and adherence to ethical and safety guardrails. Intellect. The second factor is intellectual property protection. So this, because of intellectual property protection, it kind of leads to a greater security for investors, and therefore it is likely to funnel in more financial investments into these companies, because investment tends to flow where there's protection of intellectual property rights. It's an unfortunate fact of business. And the third thing is these companies also have a clear business model, which is very clearly monetized in terms of either licensing or selling subscriptions, etc. So the path to monetization is very clear cut. In terms of economic cons, I think they all boil down to basically one con, which is that of monopolistic tendencies. The closed source companies can lead to monopolistic behavior where a few companies dominate the market, and these can potentially stifle innovation and lead to higher prices for consumers. Now, this comes from classic economic theory and has been observed for hundreds of years across hundreds of monopolies. So this is it is possible that the generative AI monopolies might behave differently, but our past experience has been that this is what monopolies do. As another result of the monopolistic tendency would be that customers may become dependent on a single vendor ecosystem and face high switching costs and limited flexibility. So that means on the customer side, there's less choice available. So again, that's not so good for the customer because people have diverse needs. And third thing is there's barriers to entry, which again follows on from the monopolistic tendency. High development costs and lead to significant entry barriers. So very few big players can come in if come into these markets, and this potentially limits competition and even enhances the tendency for monopoly further. So in the case of closed source, basically we play off the pros of a more systemized and potentially more controlled environment with the con of monopolistic tendencies. So I think you may have understood that this is a complicated scenario. What is the current scenario? We have a hybrid model. We have a very healthy and active open source ecosystem with Hugging Face and multiple companies which are either university funded or even private companies who have chosen to go the open source way. And we also have a lot of closed source models, the most important being OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic's the Claude. So these are the important cases. But for governments, the issues that I've detailed of potential for misuse, being traded off with the monopolistic tendencies of open source is something of closed source rather, is something that will not go away. So this is a complex issue, and we are going to see further developments in this arena as we go along. I hope you liked this video. It was a complex one, but the issues are complex. There are many pros and cons associated with both open source and closed source. There is no one answer. So you may have felt I didn't give an answer, but then there is no clear answer. The situation is going to evolve, and as it evolves, the governments are going to come up with their regulations. So we can only wait and watch. But it's good to be aware of what are the benefits and costs associated with each approach. If you like this video, please do consider subscribing to my channel AI Economics, and also hit the like button for this video. See you in my next video.